UFC 312 Plessis vs Strickland 2 took place on February 8th at the Kudos Bank Arena in Sydney, Australia. The event brought in $7.7 million at the gate, and even more in pay-per-view revenue, sponsorships, and merchandise sales, not to mention the UFC's broadcasting deal with ESPN, which pulls $300 million a year. But how big of a slice did the fighters take home? International commissions typically do not disclose fighter pay information, so while Venom sponsorship and fight bonuses are released, the purses I'll be showing in this video are just projections based on disclosed earnings from previous events. With that said, let's jump into the first fight.
Every fighter that's under contract, if you want to tell the media what you're paid, that's up to you.
The feature prelim saw the Aussie Jenkins take on fellow featherweight Gabriel Santos. Early in the first, Jenkins scored a head kick knockdown, but while dropping bombs on Santos, he was nearly submitted by an insanely tight triangle. The fight made it into the second, where a takedown attempt initiated by Jenkins resulted in him on bottom, with Santos dropping elbows from the top. In the final frame, Santos dominated from the jump, landing a front kick that snapped Jack's head back and quickly taking the fight to the ground, where he locked in a rear naked choke, securing the submission victory. Jenkins earned a $28,000 purse and $4,500 in Venom sponsorship, otherwise known as Fight Week incentive, for a total of $32,500. While Santos brought in $22,000 to show and $22,000 for the win, $4,500 in sponsorship, and $48,500 on the night. Heavy hands were flying early as Francisco Prado and Jake Matthews kicked off the main card. Neither man appeared too damaged after 5 minutes, though Prado sported a cut over his right eye. Matthews landed the heavier shots, but the striking numbers were incredibly close through 2 rounds. The third was perhaps the easiest to judge, as Jake connected with several solid punches and generally controlled the round from start to finish. The scorecards came down as a unanimous decision victory for Jake Matthews. Prado brought in $22,000 to show, with $4,500 in sponsorship, and took home $26,500. While Matthews made $135,000 to show, and another $135,000 for the win, along with $21,000 in sponsorship pay, for a total of $291,000. In the second fight, a takedown by Rodolfo Bellato did not go as planned, as Jimmy Crute fell right into mount position. Crute landed heavy ground and pound on his opponent and threatened with a few submission attempts. Bellato did manage to make it back to his feet, but a massive right hook by Crute sent him tumbling to the canvas. The fight did see a second round, but Crute spent much of it teeing off on Bellato's face. However, Rodolfo did pick up momentum using his calf kicks in the second half of the round and largely evened up the striking tally. By the third, Crute's leg was absolutely cooked, but he managed to survive a close round to the final bell. What started as domination by Crute turned into a very evenly matched fight, and the scorecards reflected that with a majority draw. Bellato earned $12,000 to show, as well as $4,000 in sponsorship pay, and this is one of those situations where a fight may not have earned a performance bonus, but Uncle Dana might throw in a few extra G's. This type of locker room bonus is usually in the range of $4,000 to $25,000, so for the sake of this estimate, I'll add in an additional $10,000, coming out to $26,000 on the night. Jimmy Crute, on the other hand, signed a 4-fight contract before he took on Jamal Hill back in 2021, meaning that this would have been the final fight on his contract. Usually fighters will re-sign with the UFC after their 3rd fight. However, with Crute now being winless in his last 5, it's possible he fought out his contract. That would put him around $50,000 to show. If he is on a new contract, that could potentially bump up that figure. He also took in $6,000 in Venom sponsorship and potentially a locker room bonus as well, for an estimated total of $66,000. The third fight didn't take long at all, as 6'7" rookie Tallison Teixeira landed a knee to the body, followed up by a nasty elbow to the nose that floored fellow heavyweight Justin Tafa. Tafa covered up as Teixeira rained down blows until the referee called the fight, handing him the big knockout victory. Tafa protested the stoppage, but his body language after the knockdown made it a pretty understandable decision. Tafa took in $70,000 to show and $6,000 in sponsorship pay, for a total of $76,000. Teixeira, in his first fight with the promotion coming off the Contender Series, earned the standard $10,000 to show, with $10,000 for the win, $4,000 in Venom sponsorship, and a huge $50,000 Performance of the Night bonus, taking his total to $74,000. In the co-main event, Tatiana Suarez scored a takedown early in the first round of her strawweight title bout against the champion Zhang Weili. She managed to control Weili for the majority of the round and attempted a couple of scary guillotines. The second started to play out in a similar way, but Weili reversed the takedown attempt, landing into mount and fired off big shots from the top. Suarez escaped the position, but the champion went on to control the round. A huge right hand by Weili highlighted the third as Suarez's takedown attempts became less and less effective. In the championship rounds, Suarez accumulated more damage as she was forced to strike with the champ. The fight ended with Zhang Weili on top, as she would go on to defend her belt and take the unanimous decision win. Suarez likely took home between $250,000 and $500,000 for her title challenge, along with $32,000 in Venom sponsorship, which when averaged out means a paycheck of around $407,000. Weili's disclosed purse in her last fight at UFC 292 was a guaranteed $520,000. However, we know commissions significantly underestimate purses for top-tier fighters. It's almost more useful to use this as the absolute minimum that Weili would have received. In reality, she could have made up to $1 million for the fight, along with the champion's rate of $42,000 in sponsorship. In the past, it was understood that female champions did not receive pay-per-view points, apart from superstars like Ronda Rousey. However, in recent years, it seems that's not always the case. I used the standard pay-per-view rate outlined in Eddie Alvarez and Francis Ngannou's contract documents, and in this case 500,000 pay-per-view buys, as a bit of an optimistic estimate. If we give Weili the benefit of the doubt, that would come out to an additional $400,000. That brings her total to $1,192,000 on the night. Only 7% of the people watching this are subscribers, so if you're enjoying the content and want to keep up with all the latest videos, take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. No surprises in the first two rounds of the main event, as the champion Dricus du Plessis and challenger Strickland displayed measured versions of their trademark styles in their middleweight championship fight. Du Plessis appeared to have the edge in striking, using his kicks and flurries of punches. In the fourth round, a straight right by du Plessis landed flush on Strickland's nose, and immediately blood started gushing from his face. It changed the complexion of the fight, and had Strickland uncharacteristically backing up as du Plessis continued to land at a higher clip. There was no drama as the scorecards were read, as Dricus virtually pitched a shutout, taking the unanimous decision win and retaining his middleweight belt. As the former champion, Strickland's purse would have been in the neighborhood of $500,000 to $1 million guaranteed, along with $32,000 in sponsorship pay, and while not the champion, so not guaranteed pay-per-view points, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt as well, as a former champ with a large fan base. Adding in his $400K gives him a grand total of $1,182,000. And still, the UFC middleweight champion Dricus du Plessis likely pulled in between $1.5 and $2 million guaranteed, along with $42,000 in sponsorship and his $400,000 share of the pay-per-view revenue, for a total of $2,192,000 on the night. Any corrections to the numbers I've shown will be listed in a pinned comment below. That's all for this episode. As always, thanks for watching. See you next week for UFC Fight Night, Cannonier vs. Rodriguez.